Viewers, you're watching the explosive exclusive with me, and usually it would have been Navika Kumar, but my colleague and co-anchor is not there today because we are building and working behind the scenes, viewers, on one of the biggest news breaks at 8 p.m. tonight in the Sushant Singh Rajput investigation. Other channels have only really put out WhatsApp chatter. And these channels have relied on shadowy characters, unnamed sources, etc. But Times Now always goes into a heart of a story to pull out, viewers, facts. And what we are going to reveal at 8 o'clock, and to some extent also at 7 o'clock, will shock you, will change the narrative around the Sushant Singh Rajput story. And I can promise you, viewers, will open questions that the police, the investigators, will find very, very hard to answer, and also, of course, those individuals who are part of the inner circle of Sushant Singh Rajput. But more on that, of course, at 8. You'll have to bear with us. You will have to watch us. You will have to continue to watch us into prime time, because that story will completely shake the foundations today of this entire Sushant Singh Rajput story that has been going on. But viewers, let me tell you, speaking to you right now, we can tell you, and this is the first of the exposes going forward into the evening, one at 6, one at 7, and the game-changing one at 8 p.m. Now, viewers, I want to begin by telling you that Sushant Singh Rajput was not in any debilitated sense before his death. In fact, in the hours leading up to his death on June 13, he was discussing film narrations, mother film narrations.
Absolutely.
Now, with top directors of Bollywood, individuals that don't usually cast actors that don't have a future. So anyone who is telling us that Sushant Singh Rajput was so out of it that he was scared that his problems might affect his career,
absolutely,
are actually misleading us.
This is not a person at all, Rahul,
Absolutely.
Who is not able to comprehend, who is not able to discuss, who is not worried about his career. This is a person who is engaging, going about things business as usual, and this is what very much
and he was
the last
planning
person
a
who
future,
says this. Absolutely.
not scripting the end of his life, as some would have you believe. And who are the people he was discussing his prospects with? Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani. Big directors, aren't they?
The biggest names in Bollywood, the names that any youngster would want to work with, the names which, of course, are very, very well known in the film industry. And here he is discussing scripts, just as any actor would do. It's business as usual for him. He is a person who is very much invested in his own career, and thereby he has this long conversation of about 12 minutes. And that is really, of course, what raises
and
these
broken
serious
down
questions.
in different parts of the day. So the
Absolutely.
pitches were being made by the directors. He was very, very respondent, extremely focused in these conversations, we are being told, and therefore very much in possession of his cognitive faculties. These individuals who were listening in on this conversation were part of the conference call, which took place at 3 different instances.
Absolutely.
In the day, and for a period of 12 minutes in totality.
Yes, about 2 of those calls are longer. Two of those calls are roughly 6 minutes each.
Yeah.
And there is one very short call that is made. But through each of those calls, what is discussed is films, what is discussed is plots, as is very much the case with all actors.
Let's bring in Meghna, Deka at this point to talk about the calls that were made. They're highlighted actually in green. Let's go straight across to Meghna. Meghna, you don't have to duck around. We'll just open this and we will go. Let's get our cameras in focus. That's it. Now, that's where it is. Meghna, just talk us through these numbers. Of course, we blurred out the numbers, but who is this individual that the conversation is taking place with?
Well, Rahul, very interestingly, there is so much rhetoric around the death of Sushant Singh Rajput here on Times Now. We've decided we'll only deal with hard facts and records that we can see, which is not going to be twisted, sifting the fact and the fiction. What we have here for our viewers today are call data records from the day before Sushant Singh Rajput was found mysteriously dead. And these numbers, of course, we've blocked out these numbers, but these numbers are the ones which belong to one of the topmost talent managers of Bollywood. We have this number there, the 08 is the last number which is ending, and these were the calls which were made. These are 4 calls. There's another 5th call as well which were made. The last few calls which were made on the 13th of June. 14th of June is when Sushant Singh Rajput was found dead. Here are the call durations: 297 seconds. Another one was for 24 seconds. One was for a 3-second call as well. And then there is another one which was for 33 seconds. So on and so forth. A lot of these calls were made. And Rahul, it's important for us to point out, it's not just these calls, but also WhatsApp calls were made. Because here on Times Now, not only the call data records, we spoke to the person who made these calls.
That's
Uday
another
Singh
one of
Gauri.
them. And that's a longer
another one. This is the another one. This is the last call, which was the longest call which was made for 368 seconds, and this is the one which was made at 2:22 in the afternoon on 13th of June 2020, one day before Sushant Singh Rajput was found mysteriously dead in his flat. This call
so this would have been actually Meghna, just about 10 hours before Sushant Singh Rajput is supposed to have taken that drastic step, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because it happened on the early morning of the wee hours of the 14th. His body was discovered, of course, in the morning. So this would have been just about 8-10 hours?
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe 8 to 10 hours. Perhaps that's the figure we can best estimate, Rahul. And that's what makes this so important.
Who
because
was
this
this
is the last
talent
person.
manager? Why don't
this is
you-
the last person. This is the
Absolutely,
last
last-
person who speaks to Sushant Singh Rajput, at least as per the call detailed records. We don't know if he made WhatsApp calls or other forms of calls, later in the night. But at least as far as the call details records that we have accessed, this person appears to be the last person. And he is a talent manager, not someone who's unknown in Bollywood.
Uday Singh Gauri,
Absolutely.
not unknown, very, very famous talent manager. There you can see his photograph also. And we are going to just break down. We're going to break down for you the revelations. So there are about 7 to 8 revelations he makes, viewers. Let's just take them down one by one. We can take them right now on your screens. The first one is, I spoke to Sushant many times the day before he died. That's the first revelation. So here is an individual, Uday Singh Gauri, who says that he's one of the last people, and you can make out from that called CDR, Meghna, that he was actually the last person really to speak to Sushant Singh Rajput. Then he says we had 15 to 20 minute conversation also over WhatsApp. So not just the mobile normal calls that were made, which were about 15 minutes long, but also WhatsApp calls 15 to 20 minutes where you can easily do conference calls also. And who are the people who were doing the conference calls? The 2 top directors of Bollywood. You know better.
One producer and one
Yes.
director, to the best of my knowledge, Rahul. But these are very big names, Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani. These are very, very well-known names who've been associated with a number of blockbusters. I can't list them all in this conversation, but very significant that he said that there was a 15 to 20 minute WhatsApp conversation also. So it wasn't just these 12 minutes.
Not at
if
all.
you add the 20 minutes, that's half an hour.
It could have been
That's
40
almost
minutes.
half an hour of conversation.
He's only telling us what he remembers. So obviously the WhatsApp data, no one has because it's encrypted. But filmmakers Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani were in the con call. Nikhil Advani narrated a film script idea to Sushant. Sushant's state of mind was normal during this narration, pretty much focused. Remember, he had told his family that he had to go back, in fact, to Mumbai because he was now looking forward to signing up films. And this was a period when Riya Chakravarti was not taking his calls, and there was absolutely no communication between the two for
And
a period
I'll
of
tell
about
you why
a week.
this is also very important, because there is a myth perhaps that has been created that this buzz that Sushant was not getting films. Of course he's getting films, he's getting offers, he's talking to producers,
Very
he's talking to
important point.
directors, because that is also been pushed as a theory for Sushant taking the extreme step and committing suicide, that he's not getting films. That's obviously not the case here. Here are top directors, here are top producers talking to him,
And
talent managers are
what
engaging
else
with him.
is said? He says Sushant was asking all the right calls, all the right questions. In the call, Sushant raised doubts and we took his recommendations. And Sushant said the narration was good, but sought the entire script, which you would do. Now, why would he be seeking the entire script, viewers, if he was going to be taking his life in the next few hours? What suddenly happened that made Sushant Singh Rajput, according to the Mumbai police, change his mind, that he found himself in a suicidal state and he killed himself. So here is a straight contradiction that is facing us. We're going to play out that conversation in just a few moments. I want to go back once to Meghna, Deka. Just take us through those call records once very quickly, Meghna. And then we will also go across to our reporter. Before I play out the entire conversation that we recorded with Uday Singh Gauri, pay attention to that conversation. It exposes many contradictions. It throws up many contradictions and exposes many theories that have been put forth. Yes, Meghna.
Yes, absolutely. Something the viewers ought to be looking forward to. Rahul, you're absolutely right. Of all the numbers, and we've gone through all the call records which have come in the last 6 days before Sushant Singh Rajput was found dead, not a single call came in or went out to Riya Chakrabarti. Meanwhile, this is the number that we are focusing on right now. All of them were incoming calls from the same number to Sushant Singh Rajput's phone. The durations varied from 3 seconds. One of them went on to almost 6 seconds. However, we've spoken to the person who made all these calls, said that there were several other WhatsApp calls as well, in addition to the call record data that we are putting out. And interestingly, here you can see all of this was on 13th of June 2020. Given the post-mortem report, the rough time of his death, it would be about 10 to 12 hours perhaps before he allegedly took his own life. Rahul, that's what the question that we need to ask the Mumbai police. Immediately on 15th, they came out and said it was nothing but a case of suicide. Why would someone attend to so many calls, not 1 or 2, but as many as 5 calls? There are more calls on the other page as well. 5 calls, and this is the longest call for 368 seconds. Attend to calls coming in from one of the topmost managers of talent managers of Bollywood, Uday Singh Gauri, who also says 2 of the other filmmakers as well as directors were on conference call in addition to these 5 calls. These questions need to be answered. He was not scripting his death.
Before we go out to more reporters on the ground, let's listen into this conversation that Times Now had with the last person to have a conversation with Sushant Singh Rajput. Uday Singh Gauri, the talent manager, top name in Bollywood, telling us Sushant Singh Rajput was looking forward to reading the scripts of 2 films that were pitched to him by top-notch director and producer Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani. Listen to this.
This is what day are you talking about?
13th of June, a day before he died.
Yeah. So we had a narration. There is this, and there is also this should be around 2:14:50, right?
Yeah, 2:15.
Yeah.
2:15 is the first call.
Yeah. So we had a 30-minute or a 20 to 25-minute conversation before that on this. What you're talking about is a WhatsApp call. But before that, there were calls to with Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani for narration. We did a narration on the phone.
Okay.
We did a narration.
Okay.
We did a narration. Nikkhil Advani narrated an idea to them.
Okay.
And the phone kept. You can actually collaborate this with Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani too. They should have the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
They had called me and I had called Sushant.
Oh, so it was a conference call, you're saying?
It was a 4-way call between Nikkhil Advani, Ramesh Taurani, myself and Sushant.
Could you tell me about his state of mind? I mean, your sense of...
His state of mind was normal. You can check, see again, I'm saying, you can check this with Nikkhil and Ramesh also. I was on the call, but I was just hearing because the narration was given by Nikkhil, because Nikkhil was talking, Sushant was talking, and Ramesh was talking. And he was asking the right questions. The network was bad. ये तभी जो आप बोल रहे हो ना कि
3 seconds, yeah, the call, okay.
क्योंकि connection बहुत खराब था, तो he would then ask again that Nikkhil would say that did you what did you understand? So he would say, I've understood to this point, and then he would take the conversation forward, and so it was that sort of a conversation. It was purely and it wasn't a very long. I think it should be more because it was a little longer than it seemed like a longer call. 6 minutes to nahi tha, zyada hi tha, I think. Phone call should be the last phone call is when I called him back after the narration. I asked him because he was talking to me, as in he would tell me the real thing. So I asked him, what did you think of it? So he said that अच्छा है. I think that should be a 10, 12, 15 second conversation. He said अच्छी है, लेकिन we should wait for the big script and I was supposed to get him some other details from another production house, and he asked me the questions about that.
So you're saying Sushant was sounding normal. He was asking the right questions, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the call that you're talking about in specific, this call, everything that Sushant should have asked, I'm assuming he asked. And I think, look again, I think what you should probably do is maybe speak to somebody else, because I, as his agent, was present in the call, and Nikkhil narrated the script. He asked the name of the character, he asked about certain things जो normally आप पूछते हो ना,
समझ गया
क्या हुआ, whatever.
जी.
So वो उसने पूछा, Ramesh was on the call, and they were supposed to send us something in August. Abhi, first week of August, Nikkhil was supposed to send us a script, and he was going to read it. And then immediately after the phone call, I called him back and I said, Sushant, what do you think? कैसी लगी picture? He said, अच्छी लगी. मेरे को A, B, C, D changes to be very check.
Yeah. No, it's important, Uday, that you're saying this, because a lot of people are suggesting that he was not behaving properly, that he was maybe under depression, and all the chat that is going on.
I don't want to comment something that I don't know.
Well, viewers, no one here is suggesting that Sushant Singh Rajput was not under depression. Neither are we confirming that, neither are we denying that. All we are saying is that here was an individual who was very rationally, extremely normally, without any noticeable anomalous behavior, wanting to not just pick up the threads of his career
And engage. He's engaging.
And look to the future. I'm just
future.
being told, and there's big breaking news coming in, I'm just being told by a Bollywood insider that another big director, Kumar Mangat, was also about to sign him for his film, and discussions had already happened. So this actor Sushant Singh Rajput was not without prospects. And who are we talking about? Who is Kumar Mangat? Why don't we tell this to our viewers? Let's break this also. Full frame graphics, let's put it out.
Pathak, we are told, is associated with Panorama Studios. And Panorama Studios is a big banner that has produced several films such as Dil To Bachcha Hai Ji, Akashwani, Pyar Ka Panchnama Part 2, Drishyam, Guest in London, Raid, Ujrat Chaman, Pagalpanti, so on and so forth. There are several such films that they've been associated with. It may not be the biggest, it may not be one of the topmost of banners certainly in Bollywood, but certainly it's very much a production house that has been associated with several of these films, and therefore this information
and well-heralded commercially successful movies.
Yes, some of them are very commercially successful.
It just tells you that directors, production companies, film houses were willing to bet on Sushant Singh Rajput. He was in conversations. Kumar Mangat is another name that has just come out. And I want to go across to Vivek. Vivek, clearly, here is not an individual who was planning the end of his life. He was actually planning the next stage of his life, and he was talking to Nikkhil Advani, he was talking to Ramesh Taurani, not small names, not small banners.
Here you see a young man very much full of energy, speaking with producers, unlike a narrative which has been fed to us that he's had enough of Bollywood, he was not getting the choosiest of roles, and that he was looking towards moving to Himachal Pradesh. He was about to buy a plot along the Kerala-Karnataka border and start farming. Well, that may or may not be true, but with hours before his death, we are clear that he was speaking with producers, he was discussing scripts, he was inquisitive about his role, he was asked counter questions to people who were giving him the storyline, he wanted the details of the script, and quite unlike the linear narrative given by the Mumbai police, it is clear that 15 minutes they came out and said this is a case of suicide to the waiting media. But
Vivek,
there is so much to
Kumar
prove,
Mangat,
Rahul, otherwise.
Another name being associated now with Sushant Singh Rajput has worked mostly with Ajay Devgan. So, bets always on the stars that have that X factor about them.
Absolutely.
I just want to bring in Pranesh. Pranesh, you had this conversation, very enlightening conversation. Clearly, this whole, dummy that was being sold, that he was prospectless. Sushant Singh Rajput had lost all touch with Bollywood. He had drawn inwards. He was now almost autarkic, and was not looking at...
the offers had dried up. People actually saying that offers had dried up, whereas this is proof for the first time, Rahul, why this story is so important, is that there is a series of offers coming in. You've just spoken about another director.
Yes, I was just tipped off. Someone is watching us, and a very, very respectful Bollywood insiders tipped me off on this. We're going to try and connect with Mr. Mangat also. But Pranesh, this is very, very interesting. What else did Gauri tell you?
When we got the CDR, Rahul, we looked into the details, and then this struck me. This number here on the last call on the 13th afternoon, this is around 2:22 p.m. This is the last call. This is not the conference call. He said, Uday Singh told me that after the conference call ended, in which Sushant was asking all the right questions, and by which he meant that as an actor, you have to be sure of your character and the film script, which is why Sushant told the filmmakers that I would love to see the entire script. And then he called Sushant again, and Uday Singh told us that I called him because I was his film agent, so I wanted to know what he really thought of it. And Sushant was talking to me frankly, like he would do previously. And then he said this call lasted for about 368 seconds, about 6 minutes. And he said that his state of mind was absolutely normal. So all this theory that this man was feeling helpless, that there was some withdrawal symptoms, all that has been put to rest. All that theory crumbles now, Rahul.
Absolutely. It does at least start a new conversation. And I want to go across to Kajal, Siddhant, Arunil, as well as Priyank, who's going to be breaking an explosive, perhaps the biggest story at 8 p.m. tonight. And I'm giving it away at least as a teaser. But we won't, of course, tell you, viewers. You'll have to watch it for yourself. It's going to completely change the narrative. But Kajal, this is a very different Sushant Singh Rajput that we are hearing about. We're going to play out that, of course, entire phono once more. But I want you to tell us, because there were three things that are being said about Sushant Singh Rajput, as Madhav has also pointed out. The first, most important thing that was being said is that he had withdrawn inwards. He had pretty much cut off all links with Bollywood, was thinking of giving up his career and moving out into the Mufassil towns. Number two, he was getting no offers. He was very, very upset that his career had gone into a tailspin. And number three, that he was going through a huge amount of personal turmoil, wasn't seeing really the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, these three things seem not to fall into any pattern, given the fact that Gauri has come out and told us that look, he had very fruitful conversations with some of the top brands in Bollywood.
Yes, in fact, the Kumar Mangat film with with Ajay Devgan was already in talks, and through this conversation that Pranesh has had, we have seen that even one day before his death, he was discussing various scripts and narrations along with top names, Ramesh Taurani of Tips, not a very small name, and Nikkhil Advani, of course. So these conversations were going on at the same time. So yes, it does raise questions as to what exactly, if at all, was there a tipping point, because it doesn't seem like anything really was wrong at that particular point of time, except perhaps the other fact that there was a relationship and the particular lady had moved out of that house. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be anything that seems to have really brought out some sort of a response from him, where outsiders might have been able to comment on his demeanor at that point of time, because in that conversation, Uday Singh Gauri clearly says that he sounded normal to him. But of course, he doesn't want to commit.
Yes, Madhav wants to come in.
Yeah,
yes.
in fact, I've just Rahul done a quick search on Mr. Kumar Mangat, who you've been mentioning, and he has been associated with several films. In fact, with Drishyam, Special 26, Omkara, Raid, and also, of course, several upcoming films such as Big Bull and Pagalpanti. Several such films. Singham, he has been associated with as producer. In Raid, he was a producer. Drishyam, he was a producer. Several such big budget films, and several of them which have been extremely successful commercially. And this is really what is very, very significant to know. Ramesh Taurani, as Kajal was telling us, is associated with Tips, which is one of the biggest names in Bollywood as well. This is another person who is very well known. Nikkhil Advani is a third name that's very well known. And perhaps Siddhant can give us a better light, Rahul, on what these names really mean. Siddhant, doesn't this once and for all demolish the entire theory that this is a person who was not getting any kind of offers? Here is a person who was a complete outcast. Here are the biggest names in Bollywood who are engaging with this person and want to sign him on. Siddhant.
Madhav, you are absolutely right. This is the first time even I am hearing these names, because Mumbai police has never shared these names with me. Last I was told that Sushant spoke to Mahesh Shetty in the night, and Mahesh Shetty was questioned also. His statement has been recorded. Now these names are really new. Initially the theory was given that he was going through financial troubles. Initially it was told that he never had any big movies to do, and that was the reason for his depression. But now the fact remains, since we have those CDR calls which clearly establishes the fact that the big director producers Ramesh Taurani Tips Films is a big name in Bollywood. Nikhil Advani, who had previously worked with Dharma, now works individually, is again a big name. Now if these producers and directors were narrating a script to Sushant Singh Rajput 2 days before or 1 day before his death, then completely this theory of financial troubles and no money with Sushant Singh Rajput, definitely question goes out to the investigators, the people, those who are investigating it, that how can this theory be given out that he was going through financial trouble. Now the fact also remains, to the best of my understanding and knowledge of the case, neither Ramesh Taurani's statement has been recorded nor Nikhil Advani's statement has been recorded by Mumbai police yet. These are the first time we are getting these names in public domain, that these were the director producers who were in touch with Sushant. They had long calls with Sushant. They were narrating.
Why this is very significant is that they are in fact engaging with directors and producers in Bollywood, such as other big names and other big banners. Why aren't they actually engaging with the people who were speaking to Sushant Singh Rajput?
Something very weird, something very, very weird. And we've been telling you viewers that there is something extremely fishy, and the Bihar police has been saying it, and many people have been suggesting that news channels are playing this story because they're getting eyeballs, TRP, etc. No, our interest is justice. Our interest is to ensure a fair probe. Whichever way it goes, there must be closure. We're taking a short break. Our news break has been confirmed. Yes, viewers, Ramesh Taurani has spoken to Times Now. When we come back, listen in to what he has to say. We're coming right back to this. Viewers, massive Times Now impact of our investigation. The CBI is about to upload their FIR into the Sushant Singh Rajput case any moment now on their website. So, Madhav, this...
Big development.
Very big development.
Very big development,
Yes.
because this is the first step, Rahul, as far as CBI actually getting into investigating this case is concerned. The DOPT notification happened a day ago, but we know that this really means that now the CBI gets into the investigating aspects of this. The larger question now remains that what will the Mumbai police do? Because clearly there are some serious questions about that investigation.
Absolutely. Mumbai police, for now, outflanked. Let me go across to Arunil. Arunil, massive development in this particular case. Massive development. Bhakto Singh just reporting and telling us that the CBI is to upload its FIR in the Sushant Singh Rajput probe. We are going to obviously get details from that FIR, but this is very, very critical news.
Well, Rahul, that is right. In fact, we think only the CBI can get justice for Sushant, because it doesn't really look like that the Mumbai police was concerned. Because Times Now managed to speak to these two people, Ramesh Taurani as well as the manager of actor Sushant Singh Rajput as well. The last few people who spoke to actor Sushant Singh Rajput, they had more information on what kind of a mindset actor Sushant Singh Rajput was in. But unfortunately, the Mumbai police didn't really bother. The information that we have, neither of these guys, Nikhil Advani, a senior director, an ace director in fact, Ramesh Taurani also a senior producer, as well as the manager of actor Sushant Singh Rajput, Mr. Gauri as well, he was not questioned by the Mumbai police. So how come they say that they have spoken to everybody, and the people that Mumbai police was really speaking to were the top-notch Bollywood people, be it Aditya Chopra, be it somebody like Mahesh Bhatt. But why these people were not spoken to? They would have given more insight into what was Sushant Singh Rajput's mindset, what was he planning.
Very, very good point that in fact Arunil is making. Let's just very quickly, viewers, this is big now. Before the break, we told you, after speaking to the last person to call Sushant Singh Rajput, before which he was discovered dead, has told us that Sushant Singh Rajput was looking ahead, was getting film offers, was much sought after by A-grade Bollywood directors like Nikkhil Advani, Ramesh Taurani, and also
Kumar Mangal.
Kumar
big
Mangal.
names, and they're all
Yes.
coming out. They're all coming out one by one to confirm.
And
Times
they're
House's
confirming
background.
this 2 times now. We have got another confirmation from Ramesh Taurani. Listen in to what Ramesh Taurani told Times Now.
हेलो रमेश तौरानी साहब बात कर रहे हैं.
हाँ
सर सिद्धांत बात कर रहा हूँ टाइम्स नाउ न्यूज चैनल से. सर हमारे पास कुछ सीडीआर रिकॉर्ड्स आए हैं सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के, जिसमें उनकी डेथ से पहले आपने उनसे बात की थी किसी फिल्म नरेशन को लेके. इज दैट करेक्ट सर?
हाँ
सर आई एम आस्किंग यू, इज दैट करेक्ट?
yes
अच्छा सर, वर यू प्लानिंग टू टेक हिम और साइन हिम फॉर अ फिल्म सर?
no I don't want to comment on that, anything on that.
Sir, we are just trying to figure out, we are just investigating.
Police छोड़ दो यार, प्लीज छोड़ दो. Let CBI do their work.
No sir, I just want to speak to you for a minute. Sir, because a lot of things have come that he never had any work, and this is the reason that he was in depression. There were financial issues. So, but since you are a top producer, were you in a process of signing any film with him, sir? I just want to understand
I
that.
was, but I don't want to comment on it.
And was that a narration call to him, sir?
Huh?
Was that a narration? And were he sounding depressed that time, sir, when you spoke to him?
I was calling him on phone, मुझे कैसा मालूम पड़ेगा?
Achha. But he was sounding normal, sir.
Yeah.
He was absolutely fine. And did he share anything else other than that, sir, with you?
No, nothing.
No. Okay. And sir, when was the shooting to start?
Maybe year end.
Maybe year end, sir. Okay. And everything was finalized, sir?
No, not finally. Just to hear the initial talk with him.
Acha, initial talk. Okay,
Yeah.
sir. And sir, many other producers were also about to sign him. And since you are a very big producer, sir. So, like, have you ever heard about any of this depression thing before? I mean, like speaking to him, or any insider from the Bollywood have ever told you about this?
No, I don't.
Okay.
There you go, viewers. Confirmation coming in. Conversations were happening. They were interested. You heard Mr. Taurani say, yes, we were interested. There was a film narration. We conducted it. We don't want to get into it because, let the CBI do its job. Obviously, everyone's wary of being summoned time and again in this particular case ad nauseum for the next 6, 8, 10 months or however long the investigation will take. But the CBI has definitely taken over after the recommendation was made by the Bihar government. I want us to play out that very interesting conversation we had with the agent and the
Uday Kumar Gauri.
Uday
Yes,
Kumar Gauri.
Uday Kumar Gauri who spoke to Times Now earlier.
Yes, the talent manager. Let's listen in.
This is which, what day are you talking about? The 13th?
13th of June, a day before he died.
Legal issues. The director is going bonkers in the background, viewers, because we've not been able to fire that. That's Pranesh speaking just a short while back to Uday Singh Gauri. Let's bring that back. Let's bring it back. Are we ready to play that conversation? Okay, let's do it.
This is which, what day are you talking about? The 13th?
13th of June, a day before he died.
Yeah. So we had a narration. There is this, and there is also this should be around 2:40, right?
Yeah, 2:15. 2:15 is the first call.
Yeah. So we had a 30-minute or a 20 or 25-minute conversation before that on the this what you're talking about is a WhatsApp call. But before that, there were calls with Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani for narration. We did a narration on the phone.
Okay.
We did a narration. Nikkhil Advani narrated an idea to them.
Okay.
And the phone kept, you can actually collaborate this with Ramesh Taurani and Nikkhil Advani too. They should have the same thing.
Okay.
Because they had called me and I had called Sushant.
Oh, so it was a conference call, you're saying?
It was a four-way call between Nikkhil Advani, Ramesh Taurani, myself and Sushant.
Could you tell me about his state of mind? I mean, your sense of...
His state of mind was normal. You can check, see again, I'm saying, you can check this with Nikhil and Ramesh also. I was on the call but I was just hearing because the narration was given by Nikkhil, because Nikkhil was talking, Sushant was talking, and Ramesh was talking. And he was asking the right questions. The network was banned. ये तभी जो आप बोल रहे हो ना कि
3 seconds, yeah, the call, okay.
क्योंकि connection बहुत खराब था, तो he would then ask again that Nikkhil would say that did you what did you understand? So he would say, I've understood till this point, and then he would take the conversation forward, and so it was that sort of a conversation. It was purely and it wasn't a very long. I think it should be more because it was a little longer than it seemed like a longer call. आप बोल रहे हो 6 minutes तो नहीं था, ज़्यादा ही था I think. Phone call should be the last phone call is what when I called him back after the narration. I asked him because he was talking to me as in he would tell me the real thing. So I asked him what did you think of it. So he said that अच्छा है. I think that should be a 10, 12, 15 second conversation. He said अच्छी है, लेकिन we should wait for the big script and I was supposed to get him some other details from another production house and he asked me the questions about that.
So you're saying Sushant was sounding normal. He was asking the right questions, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the call that you're talking about in specific, this call, everything that Sushant should have asked, I'm assuming he asked. And I think, look again, I think what you should probably do is maybe speak to somebody else because I, as his agent, was present in the call and Nikhil narrated the script. He asked the name of the character, he asked about certain things जो normally आप पूछते हो ना
समझ गया
क्या हुआ whatever. So वो उसने पूछा. Ramesh was on the call and they were supposed to send us something in August. Abhi first week of August, Nikhil was supposed to send us a script and he was going to read it, and then immediately after the phone call I called him back and I said, Sushant, what do you think? देखो कैसी लगी picture? He said अच्छी लगी, मेरे को ABCD changes to be check कर लेंगे.
Yeah. No, it's important, Uday, that you're saying this because a lot of people are suggesting that he was not behaving properly, that he was maybe under depression, and all the chat that is going on.
Again, Mr. Roy, मुझे ना मैं कुछ और I don't want to comment something that I don't know.
There you hear it, Madhav. Very, very important. Very, very important turn of events in this particular story. A narrative exposing, really.
Absolutely. This completely blows the cover of this entire narrative that has been built, that he was not getting films, he was cut off from films, that he was not associated with the film bird, that perhaps the lockdown impacted on him. All those theories that have been pitched time and again and have been propounded to some extent stand completely negated with this particular theory because, this raises some very serious questions. And let's also go across to Meghna, Rahul, because she has with her.
Because the next story is a continuation really of the narrative extracted from the call data records. Now viewers, we have call data records. Meghna is going to show us those from January on the one end and June, the last week of June before Sushant Singh Rajput's death. Now viewers, it's very, very interesting because in January, Riya Chakrabarti was persistently calling Sushant Singh Rajput while he was with his family, I think in Chandigarh, Panchkula. Entire 5-6 months later, she blocks him. And we see a number of calls going out from Sushant Singh Rajput to Riya, but Riya not taking any of them. So let's go across to Meghna. Meghna, just talk us through this.
Absolutely, Rahul. This is the big second exclusive angle that we are getting for our viewers. We've managed to access the entire tranche of call data records of Sushant Singh Rajput. We are going to compare his call data records in January versus what happened in June. The first bit that we are showing for you are the calls which were made from Riya to Sushant. There were 11 calls which were incoming. So essentially, Riya had called Sushant. We've also, incidentally, Rahul, spoken to Sushant's family who claimed that this is the time in January, as you can see, 20th January, it goes all the way down to 25th of January. During these 6 days, Sushant's family says that Sushant was with them, which is why it's interesting. They say that Riya was trying to, as they call it, pressurize him to keep in touch with him, repeatedly calling him and also asking him to call. In fact, the next slide will show you the number of calls from Sushant to Riya. That was as many as 14. So the total number of calls made between the two of them within a short span of merely 6 days, while Sushant was with his family, was as many as 19. Now, this is very surprising if we contrast it, Rahul, with what had happened in the month of June. Incidentally, merely 6 days before Sushant Singh Rajput was found dead. This is what the call data records look like from 8th to the 14th of June. The call from Sushant to his sister, one call was made, his sister Rani. The second one was a call to another one of his sisters that you can see in these screens. We are highlighting all of this for you. One call went out to his sister Rani. The second one on continuation, you'll see, is a call which was made from his sister. Perhaps it seems a call back to Sushant Singh Rajput. We have the details here. Then the third call which came in was to another one of his sisters, Meetu. So Sushant had also called his sister Meetu, one call, and later on we see another call which went from Meetu to Sushant. So these are the calls which are happening. In addition to that, of course, here on Times Now we also told you how the last call which was made to him repeatedly, 5 calls the day before his dead body was found, was that of Uday Singh Gauri. So in
you're
addition
telling
to that,
me, so what you're
Riya.
telling us and our viewers is that for some strange reason, Riya Chakrabarti decided to block Sushant Singh Rajput's calls.
Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. And you're talking about a significant number of calls, isn't it? How many calls and what was the cumulative dispersal on each day?
So overall, in January, there were 19 calls. But when it comes to the number of calls, there are close to 20 calls that we've accessed, perhaps even more, in the last week leading up to his death. And interestingly, not a single one of these numbers belongs to Riya. Except for Riya, there were calls which went out to his 2 sisters, also incoming calls. Then there were lots of Vodafone messages also. This is his service provider, SMSs from them. So essentially, calls from his sister, calls to his sister, several calls from the talent manager, none from Riya.
Let's go across to Amit Satam, Bharatiya Janata Party MLA, Ellen Rao, former IPS. Also, I want to go across once again to Siddhant before I come out to the 2 gentlemen. Siddhant, the call data records tell us that Miss Mukherjee, Riya Mukherjee, had virtually shut the door on Sushant Singh Rajput. The family said that first she took control of his life. Madhav even staged an abduction, was giving him medication, all sorts of things. But
very curious.
Was
very curious. Very curious. Because here is a person who is constantly engaging on the phone in the month of January. When it comes to just 5 months later, here is a person who completely stops any kind of communication.
After having dominated.
After having, if you believe the family's version, being extremely close to the person and perhaps being
cutting
extremely
the family
aggressive.
out also.
Trying to cut the family off, trying to, be manipulative in many ways. That's what the family alleges, at least. They would know best what was going on. But certainly that is a very strong allegation coming from the family.
Siddhant, this is really anomalous, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, Rahul. All these CDR records prove a point that, somewhere or the other, Riya was indeed controlling Sushant Singh Rajput. In the month of January, she was, she was making calls to Sushant. This is what family is alleging, and she was trying to ask Sushant to come back, to return. And right before his death, she cuts off all the ties with Sushant Singh Rajput. And these CDR records are the main evidence in the case. And we've been told that the investigating agencies also have this, and especially the Bihar police teams are curious in getting into the CDR records. Now, Rahul, whatever story we are putting out is on the basis of this piece of evidence that we have managed to access. And it's not just CDR, Rahul. Before this, we have certain testimonies also which seriously establishes the fact that how Riya was controlling his finances. Riya was some magic. Also, the people confirmed to us on our cameras, those who had also given testimonies to Mumbai police, and there are people also those who tell us that she has sacked almost all the staff of Sushant Singh Rajput and bought new people, those who were close to Riya Chakrabarti. So this is what was happening in Sushant's life, and perhaps this needs to be investigated properly, and this is what a demand is. And now, Rahul, as you know, that CBI is all set to take over the case. Hopefully CBI is going to look into this particular particular angle seriously, and justice will be given to Sushant
Across
Singh
to the
Rajput.
Bharatiya Janata Party representative as well as Mr. Rao, L.N. Rao, former IPS. L.N. Rao, can you deny today that the Mumbai police either is part of a cover-up or is spreading without confirmation in narrative, or is suppressing these details, or doesn't think necessary to correct the narrative that is being spread around Sushant Singh Rajput by malicious individuals, Mr. Rao?
Yes, there is a saying in our police system that that justice should be delivered, and it seemed to be delivered. Here in Mumbai police case, I think the police was doing their duties according to the law, but to the general public and to the family of Sushant Singh were not so much satisfied, because they were not given details what is being done by the Mumbai police, and that was the reason.
But Mr. Rao, you're talking about justice. The police is not in the business of, delivering justice. They're in the business of delivering evidence, which will be taken into account by the courts. If you are not collecting the evidence right, Madhav, then we have a problem.
Rahul, there is a very important question. I want to ask Mr. Rao this. Mr. Rao, the allegation of the family is that the investigation was not going according to the line that they believe. So if the line that the family believes the investigation should have taken, that has been demonstrated in the last 10 to 15 days, Rahul, have demonstrated a plethora of facts that were not even looked at by the Mumbai police. Mr. Rao, if they are looking in the wrong direction, cannot it be questioned by the family at least?
That was the reason the family were having so many grievances and so many complaints against so many people.
Do you think, Mr. Rao, you've been in the police force, and let me ask you, do you think the Mumbai police should be investigated also?
No, the role of Mumbai police that they were putting this case on some other line of investigation, that will also be probed into by the CBI.
I hope so. I hope so, Mr. Satam. That is very, very crucial. If the BJP thinks that, look, at the end of the day, the centre has got involved and this case will reach its natural, end point, that's not going to happen, because this case should also become a turning point, a watershed, in the manner in which accountability is also affixed in matters where the police is either botching up, colluding, or perhaps very, very lax.
Rahul, after seeing the call data record, the first question that comes to my mind is, who is supposed to do this investigation? Are media channels and journalists supposed to do this investigation? This should have been done by Mumbai police. Right from 18th of February, then 25th of February, when Sushant Singh's brother-in-law complained to the then DCP Zone 9, then the death of Disha Salian on 8, there is no forensic investigation, there is no investigation of the crime scene, there is no re-investigation of the post-mortem, no re-investigation of the viscera, and after 52 days, all the various names that are coming up, there are various names that are coming up. There are two parties that are being talked about. There are names which are supposed to be present in those two parties. How many people of those names have been interrogated by the Mumbai police? How many statements have been taken? They have taken the investigation on a totally different direction, on a totally different route altogether.
Arjun.
They try to create a totally different perception of nepotism, camping, ganging within the Bollywood. It is
Mr.
not
Satam
that.
and Mr. Rao, I will only have to intervene here because we're completely out of time. From Rahul Shishankar and me, Madhadas Gopalakrishnan, this was the explosive exclusive. But this is not the only one today. In just a few moments, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for a massive exclusive story and another big paradigm-altering exclusive at 8 o'clock with Rahul Shishankar today.